I myself was overcome with severe mental health difficulties. I was experiencing out-of-control mania. I'm sure many of you have run into people who have had out-of-control mania. And I was having deep suicidal depressions. I had seen my mother go through that when I was a kid. When I was 8 years old, they took my mother away and put her in a state mental institution, and she spent 8 years of her life there. And when we used to go to visit her every Saturday morning, we visited my mother at the hospital, and it was pretty awful. And there were just these people milling around with all kinds of mental health issues, milling around in these big rooms. It was really pretty scary. There were 5 of us kids, and it was really a frightening thing to do. But the important thing about my mother is they told us that she was incurably insane, and they told us that we should stop going to see her. And she remembered later that when they told us that, the next time we came, we brought her a big bouquet of gladiolus. And that image of those flowers has stayed with me over the years. In fact, I was there speaking a week ago at that very same hospital, and they gave me a big bouquet of gladiolus. After about 8 years, there was a volunteer that came into the hospital and started talking to my mother, and started encouraging my mother to talk. And my mother would talk a little bit, and then she'd apologize. And that's because she was Pennsylvania Dutch. And Pennsylvania Dutch people are taught that you don't talk a lot, you don't talk about yourself. And the volunteer said, no, 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 keep talking, keep talking. And she kept talking, and she talked and talked and talked. And she was doing so much better. And so she started gathering people together in groups and getting people to talk to each other. And they discharged her, because they weren't comfortable with that back in the mid-1950s. And after that, she became the dietitian in the New Haven, Connecticut schools, and she worked there for 20 years until she retired. And she never had any more of the extreme mania. She had deep psychotic depression and very psychotic out-of-control mania. No medication, no treatment, it went away. In 1983, we had an emergency, a very difficult time in our family, and my mother was hospitalized again. And they took her into a psychiatric ward. She was in a deep depression. And the people at the hospital looked at her record and they said, where has this woman been? She got out of the state hospital in 1954, and we're seeing her again in 1958, it was. We're seeing her again now, all these years later. Where has she been? And they said, well, she's been the dietitian in the New Haven, Connecticut schools. And they said, people don't recover. And the doctor that worked with her then as a resident talked to me just a few years ago. And she said, your mother was the first person that taught us that people can and do recover. And we changed the whole way we started thinking about this. We started looking at this in a really different way. So I was really glad to hear that story about my mother. In the